Good evening and welcome to Momentous Live, episode 71. I'm Tristan Jukra.
Hello, I'm Tasia Custody.
I'm Gray Williams.
And I'm William Silver.
Hell yeah! Nailed it all. Well done, folks. That makes me so happy. You have to enjoy the little things in these unusual times. And this economy? You can find out more about Momentous at Momentous.tv, Facebook.com/MomentousTV, Twitter.com/MomentousTV, Instagram.com/Momentous.tv, and on YouTube, search my name and look for the Momentous playlist there. Welcome back, Tasia Custody. We missed you.
Hello. I missed you guys.
Where have you been?
Where have I not been? I have been to Spain and to COVID town and to Canada and back, and here I am. So
where's COVID town? Florida?
Wherever. That's funny. I suppose you could interpret that as Florida. No, we caught it.
Oh no!
Caught it and gave it to me.
Joke's on you.
Oh no! I feel like a monster.
You're only the same as safe as anybody in your household. You understand? Yeah. So.
Oh, BA5's going around. All the cool kids are catching it. So, and it sounds like you got out of Spain just in time. It's getting hot there now, eh?
Oh, it was a crazy heat wave when we were there. Yeah,
it
was
then.
Really hot. Yeah.
All right. Well, we're glad to have you back. For those of
what
you...
have I missed? Anything new?
Oh,
I can't imagine what I've missed.
This and that.
Elon being Elon.
Some Elon stuff. I don't even remember. It's all a blur. What is time? But stick around because we're going to talk about some Atari stuff, some Lego stuff, some Netflix stuff, catch up on a little bit of space stuff, and a bit of EV housekeeping. And if you're lucky, you might even hear a little bit about vehicles powered by a little bit of pee. So stick around. All right. Well, but first, a little bit of follow-up. They say you have to have
Will drinks his urine-colored drink. Perfect.
Yeah. They say you got to have a hook at the beginning of your video, right? Yeah. It's better not be a diuretic. We know someone's got a small bladder. So let's start off with a little bit of follow-up. There was I guess probably it was over a year ago now, we were talking about the release of the Justice League Snyder Cut. And who here got around to seeing it? Anyone?
I recorded it at one point.
You recorded it? Good. Great. You saw it? Tasia, not so much. I was hoping it would come out on IMAX locally, but because of the aspect ratio, but it never did, and haven't gotten around to watching it yet. But some of you may recall that the Snyder Cut was a result of partly as a result of some heavy-duty online lobbying efforts from legions of Zack Snyder fans, or so we were led to believe. And that is still, as far as we know, largely true. So some of you may recall when the original Justice League was being shot, and I believe it was that 2017 now, and there was some issues on set, a number of things capped off by the fact that one of Zack Snyder's daughters ended up dying, and so he had to step back. Joss Whedon was brought in to kind of finish things up and to kind of punch things up a little. Some of the initial screenings internally at Warner Brothers felt that Justice League was a little dark, a little dour, not much joy. And one thing that Joss Whedon is known for in his various seasons, various series and movies over the years is that, it's a little bit jokey. We got a little bit of Firefly, a little bit of Buffy, a little bit of the first Avengers movie he did as well. And so, they brought him in to kind of finish it up and make it a little more happy-go-lucky. Well, despite that, Justice League was a bit of a flop. It only did $765 million or something, that ballpark, but it cost about $237 million. These numbers are. I guess I could look at the story, but it took a lot of money. So but it still made money. But it was still considered a bit of a flop, given that, say, like Joker came out being made at a fraction of the price as a standalone DC movie for in the 70+ million range, and it's raked in over $1 billion worldwide. So this Zack Snyder was all set to set up the new the DC cinematic universe, the DCEU as it was being known as, and it just kind of the wheels sort of fell off. Now, hardcore fans insisted, well, this was partly because he never got to see his initial vision all the way through because of interference from Warner, the tragedy in Zack Snyder's own life. And so things started going viral on Twitter, the hashtag release the Snyder Cut, et cetera, et cetera. So there's some reporting that's come from Rolling Stone in the last few days that basically claims, after an extensive amount of research, it turns out that maybe about 20% of what we were seeing on platforms like Twitter was actually orchestrated, perhaps by PR firms, by bot armies, Twitter brigades, and the like. And how much of that 20% was responsible for accelerating the other 80% as well? So was this actually an organic, uprising of the fans demanding the Snyder Cut be released? And we got some beats to accentuate that point. And it took tens of millions of dollars more to get the Snyder Cut happening. This story is fascinating because it talks about the acquisition of hard drives from Warner, apparently in an unauthorized fashion by Zack Snyder. And he started working on it even before he was given the green light, and then managed to get tens of millions of dollars out of Warner to do final editing. He had actually done some shooting in his own backyard and elsewhere. And he said, well, at least one of the shoots was approved. Apparently it was breaking COVID protocols. There's so much drama. Anyhow, I encourage folks to check out this Rolling Stone article. But my question to you three is, does knowing that change your perception or your attitude toward the desirability of watching the Justice League Snyder Cut, knowing that it seems like there's manipulation with anything nowadays? Do we think Zack Snyder was behind it because there's some little breadcrumb trails that might be part of it? Gray, I'm going to start with you on this because I know that you have thoughts and opinions on things, and given that you've seen it, and opinions, and given that you've seen it, you're a natural choice to go first on this one.
Honestly, like, this is it just feels like the next part of the story, right? Zack is an interesting. The original film was not good by any means. The Snyder Cut is a better version of a not good film. I enjoyed it. But it feels like this whole DC cinematic universe is cursed. Like looking at it, when you take a look at each individual franchise, you look at Superman. Henry Cavill is amazing, but having to come back for Justice League, they had to do some CGI with his face because he had a mustache for Mission Impossible, and it was detectable. When we take a look at Aquaman, there were some things going on with the cast, which are still going on, and I will not get into it at all because not my place.
I heard it was a real poop show.
Yep. And now we take a look at like Ezra Miller, and they have had some serious issues, like carrying firearms and threatening people, and just like there's a whole film about this character that's about to come out, and it's like the actor who is portraying multiple characters in the film is arresting themselves.
Flash, where you were referring to there.
That's the Flash, yeah. So looking at this just like it's very much on brand for the DCU. It's very meta, and the idea that Zack Snyder would then maybe pay a PR firm to do this, absolutely fathomable. Like it's just everything about this feels exactly on brand. So, am I more likely to watch the film again? Not really. Would it make me want to watch the film if I hadn't watched it? Not really, because I've already watched it. I was intrigued already. Rolling Stone's probably done some great work here of like the movie industry is corrupt.
Kel Surprise.
I'm News at 11. Roll the tape. So
Will,
Sort of be
hearing about this. Nope, that's quite all right. That's what we're all about here, is cynicism and nihilism. So, Will,
get your 2x3 Lebowski.
do you, hearing this news, is it to turn you off of possibly seeing the Snyder Cut, or does it affect you at all?
I think the black and white in the 17 hours was what was turning me off for the most part.
It was pushing 4 hours, wasn't it?
Yeah, and
and Warner was giving him a hard time for having it at 2:15 in some of the original cuts too. Please go on.
Yeah, and I just felt that the black and white thing drove me crazy, because that kind of went against a little bit of comic bookness, and already had a dark problem, and I'm not sure that that was the direction to go in.
Also known as Dark Side.
Dark Side, yeah. No, I mean, to just reiterate what Gray said, I mean, DC's kind of been a tire fire outside of one Wonder Woman movie and a couple Batman movies. I know some people like the Superman movie, and there were some redeeming parts to it, but for the most part, I didn't love it. The Aquaman movie was kind of I just always thought it was funny. The Aquaman movie, I always what are the directions they gave Dolph Lundgren? Just sort of undulate like you're riding a seahorse as he's on a green screen.
I don't take notes.
I don't take notes. I undulate all the time. No, it's just kind of been a bit of a mess. The second Wonder Woman movie may have been one of the worst superhero movies I've ever seen. It's certainly up there. I know that Jamie agrees with me and you disagree with me somewhat, Tristan. But I love the first one. I love the first Wonder Woman. But yeah, I mean, it doesn't make me any more or less interested. I think I'm a bit sad that DC is like this. I mean, I think they have some of the best superheroes. I am a bit more of a Marvel fan just because of the rounded, full three-dimensional characters with a lot of emotions and depth. But Batman is one of my favorite heroes of all time, and he's got a poop ton of depth himself. So I don't know. I think it's sad. I mean, Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman are three of the most popular superheroes that have ever been created, and yet they can't make a decent franchise around those three pieces. So it's just sad.
So, Tasia, I suspect you are not a huge fan of the DC cinematic universe per se. Would I be correct in that assumption? Given some of our past conversations,
giant fan, but I do agree with. Well, I will say, the second Wonder Woman was not the worst movie I've ever seen, because I've seen some real stinkers. But I was extremely disappointed in it, and it did not live up to the hype. And I'm such a huge Wonder Woman fan.
Just imagine if they made a 4-hour black and white version.
I don't know if you guys remember, but I went as Wonder Woman for Halloween.
Right.
I had the whole gold outfit made, and it was sick, and that was way better than the movie. So very disappointing.
Now, given your experience with on the online marketing and your insights into Twitter from past colleagues who worked there, and the whole backdrop of the on again, off again Elon Musk acquisition of Twitter, and one of his concerns being one of his ostensible concerns being the number of bots and spam accounts and all that kind of thing that he claims that Twitter has not been forthright about. What do you think of something like this? A story like this, years after the fact, says about the information landscape today. Can we believe any grassroots effort nowadays, or is everything just sock puppeting and that sort of thing? What was the other expression that astroturfing, right?
Astroturfing.
Is anything real anymore, Tasia?
No.
Okay.
That's my short answer for you. Generally,
I'm actually
to
paid to be
elaborate,
here, so
To
Wait, what?
elaborate is, I generally don't. It sounds. You guys know I'm a very positive person, and it sounds negative to say something like this, and I don't mean it in a very negative way. I mean it in a discerning way. Is anytime I read anything on the internet, whether it's something trending or like a good news story about, people donating to a kid who needs whatever, my immediate first response is like, who is behind this? Who set this up? Is this real?
Mm-hmm.
Immediately. And I know it sounds terrible, but you really can't. Not in this situation. I don't really care either way. Like, it's a great PR move, and if it was a PR company behind this, and if it was him behind it, it's brilliant because it's the perfect way to get a ball rolling, to be like, yeah, this should have happened in the first place. Like, look, the fans want to see this thing. So I don't, good on him if he was behind it.
And that's kind of like if that was the gambit, then you basically get one shot at it, and make sure it's worthwhile, because you're not going to be able to pull that off again.
People did seem to like it, and there was a hype. So whether it was started as like a manufactured hype, it did turn into a hype. So it worked.
Well, speaking of hype, another little bit of follow-up we have here. We talked a couple of weeks ago about the 50th anniversary of Atari, and the famous video game maker, kind of a shell of its former self, but whatever corporate entity owns it nowadays is making hay, with all sorts of licensing deals, and Lego is really doing well. They had a number of months ago, they released a Nintendo Entertainment system that you could build out of Lego, and a whole, like quasi Mario game that you could even play on it. And they're really going hard for the nostalgia for those the younger Gen Xers and the older millennials, who may have a little bit of disposable income for stuff like this. But now we have this Atari 2600, also known as the Atari VCS, video computer system, set from Lego. And it even has a little pop-up thing with a living room scene of a little Atari geek playing away. It's even got a cat, so extra points there. And however, it's a couple thousand pieces, $239. Will, I know that you had an Atari back in the day. That was your first console. Yes. How excited are you for this? Be honest.
I don't know. I won't lie. We have some Lego, and this definitely is interesting. We actually have the Nintendo Atari set.
Lego set?
Or sorry, Nintendo Lego set, the NES one. So the Atari set would be interesting. I don't think my wife has the same emotional attachment to the Atari 2600 that I do. But yeah, no, this looks pretty cool. And that controller, I mean, it's just classic, right? I mean, that's like practically the icon for video game machines and video games, is that classic stick and one button.
The one that didn't last very long if you played too much Activision Decathlon on it, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Gray, any interest here, or is it a little too rich for your blood?
It's a bit too rich for my blood. $239 US. It's great, and I'm glad that it exists, and I'm glad that someone's going to get some enjoyment out of it. Pass.
Tasia, if not this, what would it take to get you into some Lego?
What's the price of nostalgia? You know,
less than $239, straight up.
You know, the other crazy thing is Lego retains its value. It's crazy. Like, we have some sets that are worth like more than what we paid for them.
Are we honestly getting like Lego futures?
Yeah.
We should invest. Perfect. Yep. Making a note.
Sounds good. So just like the tiniest piece of Lego can cause an intense amount of pain to the underside of one's foot, the tiniest space pebble can cause a significant amount of damage to certain space telescopes that must be protected at all cost.
Beautiful
and
segue.
We just So it turns out that a space pebble hit the James Webb Space Telescope and did a little bit of damage to one of the cells. Gray, what happened here, and should we be worried about James Webb?
I mean, we should be worried about Webb. We should be worried about us as well. This thing hit at, what was the speed? It was coming in 22,000 kilometers per hour, or something like that. It's ridiculous. And when we're looking at this is, I mean, we've said before on this podcast, these moments are nature's way of saying, like, how is that space program coming along? Something this small, doing this much to something this far out, and anything just a little bit bigger could wipe us out. So, I mean, this single cell, it looks like they're going to be able to mitigate the damage. It far exceeded what they had expected to happen when they had run some simulations. So it's sad that it's happened. I mean, it looks like the telescope's going to continue to operate, but another hit like this could actually destroy the thing. Anything past that, again, this is a way for us to kind of look at it and go, everything out there is beautiful, but also trying to kill us. And that is one of the reasons why we need to get off this rock as a species if we want to continue to survive. And
in related James Webb Space Telescope follow-up news, we have been seeing over the last couple of weeks some of the initial amazing images start to be shown off by NASA, and we had a look at some of them last week. We've learned that some of these images, the raw image files, can be upwards about 57 gigabytes each. Now, then they get transmitted to Earth. Luckily, they've got an amazingly fast connection, a downlink speed of about 29 megabits per second, which is actually faster than the link from Hubble. But there's only a 68 gigabytes of storage on an SSD, a solid state drive there. So you basically get to do one image at a time, and you got to send it to NASA before you can capture the next image. Gray, being our official Momentous Space correspondent, do you think maybe they should have, flash? I know SSD flash storage goes up and down in price, but should they have loaded a little bit more in there, or is this okay? It feels a little tight.
And the way that the system was design was actually to use this as part of a pipeline. Anything here actually would not have been more efficient for them. Essentially, the way they're sending data back to NASA, it's kind of filling the buffer, sending it, filling the buffer, sending it, filling the buffer, sending it. They weren't actually able to send anything any faster. So this is actually appropriately sized. More storage on the other end. Basically, again, takes up energy, takes up space, takes up weight. Would it be nice? Absolutely would. But this system is actually designed in an incredibly efficient way. So, as much as they probably should have sprung for the 256, it probably would not have helped. Fair?
Okay, we'll take your word for it. For our next little bit of space news, I'm going to throw it over to our resident Italian, because we got a little bit of Mars spaghetti here. NASA's Perseverance rover has spotted a strange tangle. This noodle-like object is almost, so they say, certainly a piece of human-made debris. But look at this. This looks like something out of the Matrix, or what? What's the first thing you see? War of the Worlds? Yeah, the movie, the Tom Cruise version. Tasia, when you saw this, not to be racist, but did you think past it? Did you think something else?
I did not. It does not look like spaghetti. It's too thin, and then there's like a clump. And if you
cook your pasta
properly, you shouldn't have a clump like that. So I'm not really sure.
I love that you're schooling us on this.
Yeah, who decided this looks like spaghetti? It looks like a nebula with long tentacles.
Gray, what do you think this actually is?
I mean, looking at it, it looks like it might be part of a descent system. Realistically speaking, there are any number of things that could cause something like this. It's spaghetti. It is actually space spaghetti. That's it. There's a meatball there.
It's decided.
I'm coming down on the side of spaghetti.
It's space spaghetti.
It's not well-made spaghetti, and this is the thing. It's the Roman Empire did well, but they didn't quite get to the moon. But perhaps.
Made by Manja cakes.
So in terms of a visual segue, I wanted to share with you a little something from that was produced in a tribute to Stranger Things, and it's not entirely dissimilar from Mars Space Spaghetti, and it is a mind flare rendered in JavaScript in one's web browser, and one can zoom in and pan around, and there's keyboard controls. Here we go. You can make it kind of walk when you're interacting with it. It's good to have the volume on because it sounds very wet. So this is the Mind Flare. This is from what season of Stranger Things did the Mind Flare feature? It was the first.
Was the Mind Flare first or?
Nope. It
was season 3. Is that what you said, Greg? All right.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
This is a remarkable
by proxy,
example.
Season 4.
Yeah. This is a remarkable example of what can be accomplished in the web browser through JavaScript and supporting technologies nowadays. But if you haven't had a chance to play with this, do so. And make sure you have the volume on because it is horrifying. That is all.
Okay.
Next, speaking of Stranger Things and Netflix, a little bit of follow-up. We had talked a few weeks ago about Netflix had lost a couple 100,000 subscribers, but a lot of that was due to cutting off Russia, et cetera, et cetera. It wasn't as bad as it seemed. Well, in their latest earnings call, apparently in the US and Canada, in their most recent quarterly report, they've dropped over 1.3 million subscribers in the last few months. Apparently, it's not as much of a loss as they were expecting, and they are doing some things to turn things around a bit. We talked about them adding gaming to the Netflix platform, although who knows how many people were really in the gaming mind space for when they're using Netflix. We talked about an ad-supported tier that they're considering, and that may not feature all the titles on there because they're still negotiating with the various studios whether those studios want Netflix ads either before, after, or inserted within the programs. For the Netflix owned content, it's a no-brainer. And then in related news, Netflix is also acquiring the animation studio behind the Lego Movie, which is known as Animal Logic. So they're throwing a bit of money around, not just on the production of TV shows and original movies, but now bringing an animation studio in-house. Tasia, just with all these kind of stories in mind, do you think it's too little too late? And B, do you think Netflix is going to further damage their reputation, which has kind of been damaged already by a lot of the stuff they've been shoveling out the door? Speaking of spaghetti, throwing spaghetti at the wall, mm-hmm. Whereas it had the impression of being sort of premium, and by adding ads to that, are they junking things up even further? What are your thoughts on that?
I do not like the adding of ads, because here's my thing: that's television. And so This is why we pay for streaming services. Now, obviously, we're not the target market. You know what I mean? Like, we're the market there's a huge portion of people that don't have cable, don't have TV, and maybe understand Netflix, to me anyway, is still one of the top 3 streamers, if not the top for me. So that's their market, are people that are like, if it'll cost me a few bucks a month, but I have to deal with like an ad or two, not a big deal. For me, it would drive me absolutely bonkers. I don't see them panicking. Like, I don't see why it's a panic. There's ebbs and flows to these platforms. So I would love to see a comparison chart. Like when this news came out, and I just read another article on it today, but like when the news came out, I'd like to compare that to, well, how many people are dropping Disney Plus, which I cannot wait to get rid of. Brett's like literally binging the rest of Star Wars. I do not watch that platform. And so it's like, what are these ebbs and flows? And like, how many times do people like sign up again under a different email or something, binge what they want, then drop off, then they'll sign up again. And so like, how is that all correlated? And then how do they all compare to each other? I think before the panic, because to me, and I might be biased, at the end of the day, they're still in my top 3, if not still the best streaming platform.
Gotcha.
Even with the spaghetti flying at the wall.
Well,
and I watched a real stinker the other week, okay? It was
what was that?
bad. Oh my gosh, that senior year movie, Lord help me. Don't do it. Do not do it. I'm going to save you all time.
Not going to be your pick of the week?
Horrible. You want to talk about one of the worst movies you've seen? Oh boy, a stinker.
Well, it's getting to the point where if I'm scrolling through Netflix and I see that N logo in the corner of the thumbnail, I'm more likely to keep scrolling than to stop and have a look. Like that's what they've kind of done in my mind.
Unless it's reality.
Especially if it's reality.
For me, it's unless it's a reality show, because I love
different
like
strokes.
the certain Netflix original reality shows. But yeah, the movies. Whoo-hoo.
It's so interesting that they've done a 180 on reality shows, because I remember when we were talking with them about 2011 or so, they had specifically said they didn't want to bring reality on because it goes stale so quickly. And here it is now. Maybe that was a head fake, and they just wanted to do their own reality shows that they wouldn't have to pay. They'd only have to pay for once. They wouldn't have to keep licensing over time. So interesting.
Yeah,
how
but it
they've
actually
adapted.
makes sense for them to do it because they are right at this. They are right. They do go stale, but that's also the brilliance of it, is they're always going to have content and seasons to produce of it. So you think of a Selling Sunset, which was their best reality show, like most popular, something like that. Even the Love Is Blind and the things like that are just so insane. They understand we all have 20 seconds of attention span. Do you know what I mean? So they're right in that. But that's also why it works on their platform, because it'll keep people subscribed, because it's I'll get another season of that. This garbage, sign me up.
Do you know what I mean? I think it's interesting because there's sort of different platforms for different people. I mean, for me, Disney Plus, everyone's different, but for me, obviously, Star Wars, Marvel, it's my go-to, and we watch it a lot. We don't watch Netflix as much, but there are series like The Crown, Stranger Things, comedy that we still watch, but we don't watch much else on Netflix. It's mostly Disney Plus for us now, and we don't even watch Prime. It kind of hangs around there in the background, and I think the last time I saw anything on Prime was 6 months ago.
Hey, free 2-day shipping.
Yeah, exactly.
Put the side of video.
Yeah.
There's an amazing amount of stuff on Prime if you dig around. Yeah. That's the thing. You got to dig for it. Gray, anything to add before we move on?
I'm going to be taking the summer off. So as of tomorrow, everything's been watched. Strange New World, Stranger Things, Warp, Strange themed stuff. Anyway, it's all done. So I'm cutting everything. It's $80 a month. I'm killing it for the next month. I'm going to bring them season after that. Yep. Done. I feel bad for the people that are piggybacking my account. So if you're watching this and you are, this is your warning. Love ya.
Try adulting.
Get your account.
Gotcha. Oh, and that's the great thing with some of these services. They let you put them on pause for 1 month, 2 months, 3 months. And because my concern about canceling altogether is losing all the history, the ratings, all that kind of stuff. Because undiagnosed OCD. So, okay, real quick round robin. If you can't say Squid Game, you can't say The Crown, and you can't say Stranger Things, favorite Netflix series or show, movie, or something. Tasia.
Daredevil.
Tiger Kings.
Tiger King, well, okay.
Well, fine. I'll pick Selling Sunset.
Selling Sunset?
You won't let me pick Stranger Things, which is bull.
Well, it's just a little. We've talked about it to death. That's all. We gotta.
It is one of the best, well-shot shows ever to be created.
Preaching to the choir. That's why we're digging deeper. So, Selling Sunset, real quick. What is that?
It's a reality show where a bunch of hot women sell high-end real estate and walk around in real tight dresses and don't eat food and fight.
I'm not angry. I'm just disappointed.
A little bit of houses in there. A little bit.
And Gray, what did you said?
I was saying Daredevil, but
Oh,
He's really upset with me.
I'm not upset.
He's not
Again,
upset.
I'm just
disappointed. Nice.
I thought it was judgment, but it's disappointment.
I don't know if this is a favorite, but I'm gonna pick one that I just thought of. That it was a criminally few number of episodes. A little bit of improv comedy, Middleditch and Schwartz, featuring one of the stars of Silicon Valley and one of the stars of Parks and Rec and now Space Force. Middleditch and Schwartz. I think they only did like maybe 3 episodes. They're live shows where the entire show is improvised, and is remarkable display of skill. So I don't know if it's a favorite, but it's like in the comedy stuff, quite good. All right, moving on. If Ray mentioned saving money by cutting off streaming services while going off into the desert to burn down pagan symbols for fun and profit.
Did that last weekend too. It was good.
Beautiful. Another way that instead of saving some money, you could make a little money, perhaps by getting back at the tech giants who colluded to overcharge you for your optical disk drives in devices between 2004 and 2010. With no proof of purchase, you can be a member of this class action lawsuit and get yourself a cool $20.
Yeah.
And if you have receipts, you could even claim more. But unfortunately, some of us get rid of our receipts after 7 years, CRA, et cetera, counter revenue, and may have bought lots and lots of different devices with optical drives, but we are out of luck. So, in related news, Apple has just settled a lawsuit over its Butterfly keyboard for $50 million. So coming soon to an email inbox near you, may be another opportunity to get a bit of scratch from another corporate electronics giant to make up for their terrible design choices. Thank you, Johnny Ive, for the controversial keyboard to get things ever so thin, which they then fixed a little in a couple of revisions and then kind of went back to scissor switches, refined scissor switches. Tasia, do you ever participate in these class action suits to get your $20 or whatnot? Because I've got one friend who's always posting these things on Facebook when they come up, and I usually forget about them and forget about my free money.
Yeah, I've never been part of one or tried to be part of one. I think it's hilarious that people get so angry about technology. Like, how did that keyboard damage you so badly?
Well, when I hit a key, I expected to type the letter, and the Butterfly keyboard did not fulfill that contract. And you hit the N key, and you get no N, and that to me is we're not doing so well. I would more than $20 for that.
Hey, folks, keep your receipts for the your Rogers phone bill from
coming soon to a class action lawsuit near you. Oh, Tasia, you missed that chat last week. So with the Apple one,
I was in Canada when that was happening.
Good times there.
And you didn't call?
she couldn't. Yeah, so with the Apple one, you could expect anywhere from $50 if you had to replace some mirror keycaps to all the way up to $395 if you had to replace multiple keyboards, especially out of your own pocket. But, there's also time and hassle there. Gray, Will, have you ever participated in any such class actions? It's so easy to sign up, and, you just have to wait a few months and then you get some free money. Yeah. You've gotten some, Gray?
I've done a couple. I can't remember precisely what they were for. Usually Microsoft, I think they did one for Windows at one point. There was one for Office that I'm getting recently. But yeah, it's just, you sign up, you get your 20 to 100 some odd dollars, and so be it. I'm sure the lawyers are getting far more. But now here's the thing, I've got an Epson document scanner, like one of the little ones that I just feed my receipts through all the time. And I actually tag them with stuff. So I'm going to go back and see what had an ODD. Right? You're done with ODD? Yeah, you know me. So I'm gonna see if I can squeeze a little bit more out of Sony and Toshiba. I feel like I can.
Well, it's a surprising number of these class action lawsuits are actually related to collusion and overcharging for certain electronics components too. Now, Will, you had submitted this story for this week. Did you have a particular angle on this? Are you participating, or have you ever participated? What's your interest in this?
I'm curious. I'm interested in participating, at least from the aspect of getting $20 free, and I think I would be guilt-free because we've all bought lots of these devices during that period of time. I remember wasn't there one over digital rights management or something? I thought about getting into that as well because I had some discs there was particularly a Beastie Boys one that was a real pain in the ass. I couldn't even play it in my car. Like it was a pain. The other one I participated in many moons ago was the hot coffee lawsuit, class action lawsuit against Grand Theft Auto 4, or is it 3? I can't even remember now. Does anyone remember that? No. Okay.
Oh,
there was
vaguely.
There's a sexually explicit scene in Grand Theft Auto 3, and it was called the hot coffee mod. Yeah. Anyways, but that was like 15 years ago or something like that.
I've been scarred for life. Give me money.
Yeah. I was horrified.
that mod is almost old enough to buy a gun. So, well done.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's been a while.
If you enjoy being horrified, feast your eyes on some of these new EV designs coming your way. Some less or more horrifying than others. I'm going to just blast through these really quickly and then ask for some of your hot takes real quick on this. The third release on this platform from Hyundai/Kia is the Ionic 6. Oh, sorry, it's on a slightly different platform. So we had the Ionic 5 from Kia, and then the Kia, or from the Hyundai, the Kia EV6, and then we had the Genesis, which was, those three are all on the same platform. This may be a slightly different platform now, but it's a very different design that we're looking at for the Ionic 6, which is actually, I believe, I think it's a higher number, but slightly smaller than the Ionic 5. The Ionic 5 is pretty angular, it had the pixel lights and whatnot. And the Ionic 6 is going for very low drag coefficient here. Again, pretty minimalist and futuristic insides. So just feast your eyes on that. I think I'm getting some Audi TT / Mercedes-Benz vibes with some of these shots here. Then from another traditional car maker, we've got the 2023 Cadillac Lyric EV, which you can feast your eyes on this. And now all of these vehicles have, much improved ranges over the EVs of the past. We're pushing, 400, 500, 600 kilometers or more with some of these big ones. And Tasia, I know that you're, if not a Chevy gal, a Corvette gal, and that's kind of in the same family. You could graduate to a Cadillac a Caddy someday, but some pretty it's to see some of these older names, like we talked about recently, how Buick had an EV concept that they were going to be releasing at some point too. So trying to hook some of the younger generations. So just again, soak those in and get ready to share your thoughts. As we get a little more interesting, there's something called the Lightyear Zero, which actually has solar panels on the roof and the hood. Not so much to recharge your car, but to augment the accessories. You get about the same amount of charging for your car's battery as if you were plugged into a 120 volt outlet. So just help you get a little bit more range. It would in 24-hour period. Well, not that we get 24 hours of sunlight, but if you had 24 hours of sunlight, you'd be getting about 43 kilometers of mileage being added to your range for your battery there. So kind of a neat idea. And then at a far extreme, we've got EVs getting into racing demos, where we have this one that looks like a Batmobile almost, breaking the Goodwill Hill record. And it's interesting to see the racing circuits. They're starting to embrace EVs because they're not so much about the macho side of things. They don't need the roar of the engine so much as they want pure speed, right? So we're seeing the benefits of EVs starting to infiltrate various aspects of car culture. In this case, the competitive side of things. 0 to 60 in 1.5 seconds and hitting 241 kilometers per hour during the race. Another strange idea, we've got a motorcycle that can ride on roads and rail tracks. So this is a specialty vehicle for, showing here, this is just a mock-up on a highway, but this is the sort of thing that you would see in maintenance applications for rail lines. It's a shape-shifting bike for railway track inspections. So, honestly, this looks like it could fit right into a Tron movie if you added some sweet RGB lights on there. And then, last but not least, going right into e-bikes, we've got some local news. A BC company called Lyric Cycles, soon to be demoing their e-bike motorcycle crossover. So it looks like some of the utility e-bikes that you see out there nowadays. I'm not sure what makes it a motorcycle crossover per se, but perhaps the throttling there. The company was founded in 2020, and this e-bike is going to be going for about $4,000 with a range of 130 to 160 kilometers, top speed of 60 kilometers per hour. So I guess that's why it's getting up into the motorcycle territory, because you might start requiring licenses and insurance for that. So real quick, and I'm going to start with you, Tasia, and your sweet caddy. When you see these stories from different aspects, whether it's something like the latest Ionic in the Ionic line from Hyundai, or the Caddy, or a solar powered or a solar augmented EV, to a race car, to a bizarre looking rail maintenance type of contraption, to an e-bike motorcycle. Which of these, A, are you most interested for yourself, and B, do you think is most significant in terms of the progress of EVs in our world and in the popular imagination?
Well, I think for me, like the one that most would fit would be the Cadillac, because it's kind of like the SUV. I like to be a little higher up than in little cars. Purely based on looks. I like the look of it. I think it's sexy. It's not like too futuristic and weird. It doesn't have like super weird curves, but looks kind of nice. I don't know if I'd probably be distracted by all of those. I have like a 2013 very base model Toyota RAV4, so I'd probably be very distracted with all the screens. But
it's got some real switches, though. I like that.
It does. But I like that one the best. Like for me personally, now for your next part of the question, I don't think it's like changing the world, that one necessarily. I think something more cool would be like that bike that can go from like road to rail, and obviously there could be specific applications for it, but if you start thinking of like emergency vehicle response or something like that, I think something like that could have the potential to maybe change the world a bit more than just that cool looking Cadillac.
Gotcha. And maybe not for recreational use on railroad tracks, because you might have a bad time.
Right.
But kind of interesting to see where the imaginations are going and the different applications, even if they're non-consumer. Exactly. How about you, Will? What speaks to you most personally, and which do you think is most significant or interesting?
I feel like I'm a broken record. I'm basically going to say the same two things. I think the Cadillac is kind of the most functional and cool looking, but I love the idea and the sort of nicheness of that rail runner, and I think that's kind of cool. Now, having said that, I'm not really a motorcycle guy, so I probably wouldn't want to use one myself, but they look pretty cool. And they're very futuristic. It kind of like it's something different too. I often say that I don't want my car to look like cosmic bug or something like that. Now, you know, like the i3, I want it to look like a car, which I feel like the Cadillac is. But this is something different, right? This is a different application, a different kind of machine. So I think that's kind of cool.
Great. What speaks to you most on both of those angles?
He's gone.
Great. Oh, we lost him.
His power went out.
Oh, is that what he said?
Yeah.
Oh, yikes. Okay, well, I guess we'll move on to the next segment.
you didn't notice his little head disappeared?
No, I down the side.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Oh, power just went out. Oh, like in his building.
Yeah.
Yikes. Okay, well, we'll have to soldier on, folks.
Yes.
Someone could just give him a quick acknowledgement there while I continue. I right the ship here. Let's move on. And as for myself, I get the appeal of the Caddy, but I think from a sheer like cool factor, I'm kind of digging this Lightyear Zero because I love the idea of getting energy for free from the sun, and I've actually been exploring getting some solar panels for trickle charging our 2016 Kia Soul EV, which is just a little local runabout, not super range. We're getting about 120 kilometers of range at this time of year. The highest I've seen is about 146. It depends on the temperature, your driving style, if you're doing highway versus city and so on. It does better in the city than on the highway because it does more regenerative braking. But I was kind of looking into options for being able to top up the battery with solar. So having it built in is kind of appeals to me from that point of view. And in terms of the significance in our day and age regarding mobility, I'm going to have to lean toward the e-bike motorcycle crossover only as just another data point in the trend toward the diversification of transportation options. And it's getting a little worrisome in some cases, because if you think about it, we've got cars, we got motorcycles, we got bicycles, and thanks to very vocal cycling advocates, we've got more things like bike lanes around, and sometimes even segregated bike lanes. But then we also have things like skateboards. We've got like electric skateboards, scooters, electric scooters, e-bikes now, which some traditional cyclists aren't super fond of, and not to mention mobility scooters used by people with mobility issues, be they seniors or people with various disabilities. All of a sudden, we've got tons of different types of vehicles that want to use the roads and or bike lanes and or sidewalks. And something like this e-bike motorcycle crossover, where is that going to fit? This sounds like if it can do 60, I mean, that's fast enough to be legal on the highway if the local authorities will allow it to be insured. But then you start to worry. But if it's so that's why I'm fascinated by this space, because it's going to be chaos, quite frankly.
I'm super concerned. Like in Vancouver, it's a bit of a free-for-all, like you sort of indicate, with the different vehicles. And a lot of them try to occupy pedestrian areas or are fast and loose with what they are. I almost hit I think it was some sort of skip the dishes or something scooter that was cutting through a park and then going onto the road. And I almost took him out. Like I had to slam on my brakes because he was cutting through the park, and I just didn't expect something that fast to be coming out of the park. He's going top speed, rolling out of the park, going to his next thing. So, I mean, this is where, like, I sound like such an old man, but we need rules and we need them enforced. Like, if you're going to be a vehicle, be a vehicle. If you're going 30 or 40 kilometers, you should be on the road. You shouldn't be swinging by old ladies with walkers. It's like, it's just not safe. That's not what it's meant for. That's not what the sidewalk is meant for. To your point, even bike lanes aren't meant for e-bikes to be chucking at high speeds.
Yeah, it can, and it's that they say diversity is our strength, but sometimes it can cause some problems when you've got vehicles that are a little too diverse sharing the same pathways. So, I mean, they're cool to look at. I'm sure they're a blast to ride, but it's tough enough getting people to follow the rules. But half the time, people don't even know what the rules are. because they're not being taught in high school. And, and how many people actually take driver's ed or any kind of courses? I mean, you get tested, but some people get through with getting a lot of, still a fair number of answers wrong on that stuff. So I don't know, man. This is old man yells at cloud a little bit, but
yes, I'm there yelling with you.
Well, thanks. It's always good to have a chorus. So we got to get that old lady with the cane into a mobility scooter, and then then she can run over some teens. Okay, so another related issue that I touched on very briefly was e-scooters, and we're seeing these e-bikes and e-scooters from Lime and Bird and others. We've seen the Uber Lime ones around Vancouver lately, and Tasia, I imagine you've got some of these Lime and Bird ones are in your neck of the woods as well. And some people are choosing this because they think, oh well, it's a green option, right? But there's a lot of hidden carbon footprint when it comes to organizations like this, because they're sure they're shared and all, but there's a lot of those bikes are sitting idle a lot of the time. And when they actually take a look at the total carbon footprint and compare the amount of CO2 per passenger mile over the entire life cycle, they're looking at about 202 grams of CO2 per passenger mile for these e-scooters, whereas compared to an electric moped, which is about 119 grams, e-bikes, 40 grams, bicycles, only 8 grams. But the kicker here, that at 202 grams is even more than a diesel bus, which is at 82 grams, because a diesel bus can carry a whole bunch of people, right? So if it's got high ridership. So still much better than a shared car, which is 415 grams of CO2 per passenger mile. But, so still better than that. But it's good to know all the things, because it's easy just to be lulled into a false sense of security. Well, I'm doing this, it's greener. Well, it's still not as green as some of those options we mentioned.
Well, and you think about, like it's probably more kind of here where I live, but then there's gas-powered trucks going around and picking up all the all the scooters.
You should invent electric trucks, don't you think?
Right? That people leave, in my neighborhood or whatever, that is not convenient for someone else to pick up. So they have people that go around and pick them up and then bring them back to more of the central area where people would pick them up again. So pick up the scooter again. So
that's all got to be part of the equation.
Yeah.
So next in our line of alternatively powered vehicles, P-powered vehicles are finally making a splash. Now,
great headline.
Yeah, I mean, basically what they're talking about here is ammonia, but we all know, especially if you have a cat, that
I was just gonna say,
oh man, yeah,
urine contains a fair bit of ammonia, and apparently some geniuses have figured out a way to help decarbonize transport with ammonia-powered vehicles, because it's a combination.
I just have one question.
Yes.
Does it get rid of the smell first? Have they processed it where it doesn't reek?
I don't know, but
my number one.
I'm sure we've got our best team of crack cat scientists on the case. Yeah, I would imagine. Well, I mean, it might still smell like ammonia, but a lot of times, through these chemical reactions, for example, hydrogen powered cars, what comes out of the exhaust is just pure water, right? So similarly, what is the exhaust from this? I doubt it's simply just cat pee smell.
Oh, man.
But as you often see, these kinds of proofs of concept are being demonstrated in non-consumer applications. So in this case, you got a company called Amogy, which is demonstrating the ammonia-powered tractor. So at least, they're in the land of ammonia already with fertilizer and the like. We got to be careful about supply chain stuff, because thanks to certain invasions in parts of the world, certain key ingredients might not be so available for our ammonia-powered vehicles. But again, it's just an interesting look at the continued exploration of fuel sources and the diversity therewith. I mean, hydrogen-powered cars aren't dead yet. It's still interesting. The only problem with hydrogen is like the lack of infrastructure. We've only got like 2 or 3 hydrogen stations here in the Greater Vancouver area, for example. Anyhow, making a splash with your P-powered car. So let's
Excuse me, I just gotta fill her up.
Looking at the time here, why don't we save a couple of stories for next time and get into our picks of the week, shall we? And I'm going to start with Will while I look up what Tasia's is. Will, what do you got for us?
Yes. So my wife has a bit of an addiction, and the addiction is to what's known as nugget ice, also sometimes known as Sonic style ice in the US. We have put way too much time and effort into researching this. She loves this ice. We bought an ice machine, and we had to get a undisclosed friend to smuggle it across the border and buy it in the United States of America. Who would be so bold?
Must have been a very good friend.
They were an amazing friend.
Or at least
nothing to declare.
Yeah.
That's a story we're going to talk about offline.
Yeah.
Oh, that's it. Okay.
Yes.
Little nugget ice.
So it's the little ice.
Like little tiny pieces.
Nugget buddies.
Yeah. So you can get it at like IKEA, a lot of
the ice itself.
Sorry. The ice itself. Yes. The ice itself you'll see in those type of like fast food or cafeterias, but not all the time. But yeah, the actual machine is hard to find. You can find machines that make regular ice, but the actual nugget ice is hard to find. And it's just nice and chewy and sort of dissolves nicely in soda. So big fan. Nice to make drinks with, as we see there. So yeah, that's my pick of the week.
Little tiny ice.
Nugget ice, the GE Profile Opal Nugget Ice Maker. Links for our picks of the week and everything else we've talked about today will be in the show notes. So,
might I add, this is one, maybe just to go down the journey a little bit. We looked at a few different models, and there was actually one that was available in Costco in the States. And we read the reviews. I think we've talked about, how to look for products online. And some of the reviews, I mean, obviously you don't want to be like the local Greek restaurants, like, this is the best Greek food and the owner is super handsome. You got to be careful about some reviews, but these reviews were actually quite...
Zack Snyder's bot army.
Yeah, but Zack Snyder's bot army. There was actually a few that felt genuine, and a couple of them were like, especially on the Costco model, I won't say what product it was or what brand it was, but basically said... where somebody said, don't waste your money, just buy the GE one. And we'd already been looking at the GE one, and it was sort of like, okay.
Helpful review.
From Mr. GE,
From
Esquire.
Mr. GE, the owner of the local Greek restaurant.
That's a great pick. I look forward.
5 stars.
I look forward to enjoying some nugget ice with you soon. Well, just
you deserve
waiting
it
for the invite. Tasia, your pick of the week?
My pick of the week is a movie. And you guys know I do not leave the house for movies. We've talked about this.
Yes.
I left the house and went to a movie. And I saw Elvis. Wow. And you guys, I don't know if did anybody see it yet?
In the trailer.
No, I've heard it's good.
Oh, y'all, I'm going to tell you right
some
now.
Baz Luhrmann directed movies like Moulin Rouge and Strictly Ballroom and Romeo and Juliet.
So good. If Austin Butler, who plays Elvis, does not win an Oscar, I will boycott everything that is ever any type of award type. I mean, he does such a good job. The costume design is fantastic. How they recreated very specific scenes and like times in Elvis's life are like the exact moment happening again. It was fabulous. It's long, so I would say go to the bathroom before it starts. It's like 2:45, I think. It's like 2 hours and 45 minute run.
Good value for the money.
But it doesn't feel like it. Like at no point was I like, like it was so good. And if I was going to leave the house for any movie, I'm so glad I did, and it was for this one. Fabulous.
Nice. I got to say, I was a little over on the fence about it, but
you'll like it.
But I like Baz Luhrmann as a director, and mad respect for Elvis as an artist. I hear he was a hero to most, but didn't mean poop
to me. He was just a damn ghost. Sorry, that's a Public Enemy line.
Exactly.
Well, it gives you a lot of context, where he got a lot of his inspiration from, the friends he had. They go into a bit of, the politics that was happening around that time and segregation and things like that. And so it's just a really, really well done movie, and done in cooperation with Priscilla as well, and the family. So it was very much like not only greenlit from them, but they helped work with the team to ensure that it was an accurate depiction. And I learned some things I didn't know. And I would even recommend it to my mom, who is a big Elvis fan. And I mean, that voice is very iconic. So I wanted to be really discerning when I watched it, to be like, I don't know, would this pass? And it's mostly Austin Butler's voice in it.
Wow.
They do a bit of work at the end as Elvis is aging, and like his voice change. They do a bit towards the end where they combine the voices, but mostly it is Austin Butler, and it is insane what he does. It's really good.
Great pick. Glad to have you back.
Go see it, guys.
We just might. My pick of the week. No, seriously, Baz Luhrmann. And that's the kind of thing that would probably be great in the theater as well. I'm so proud of you, Deja, for venturing forth. Well done.
Thank you, guys.
Well done. My pick of the week is a quirky little comedy TV series, which is on Crave here in Canada. In the States, I think it's on the CW. It's from a New Zealand network originally. And it's a spin-off from the original What We Do in the Shadows movie, which was produced by Taika Waititi, a famous director of Thor Ragnarok and others, including the latest Thor movie. And Jermaine Clement from the Flight of the Conchords, New Zealand's #1 folk comedy duo, which they had their own TV series for a while. And they had this wonderful movie called What We Do in the Shadows, about a bunch of vampires that shared a house. And there was a rival gang of werewolves. And then there were some police officers involved in at least one scene who had to come and break up a little bit of an impending brawl that was happening. Well, they took the idea of those police officer characters and spun it off into this entire series, and I believe there's 4 seasons so far, called Wellington Paranormal, as in Wellington, New Zealand. And it's like a cross between X-Files and some police procedural, and I'm not sure what. It's very quirky. It's that mockumentary style. So if you enjoy that style from The Office or Parks and Recreation or the TV series of What We Do in the Shadows, which is great, and I've recommended it here on Momentous before. This is a little known, very quirky gem of a show. It takes a little while to get going, but these 2 officers will investigate all sorts of paranormal activities, be it ghosts or demons or aliens. The most recent episode I watched, there was a haunted house, but they had noise complaints, so they went to investigate, and apparently it was this due to this party that had been going on for about 40 years. That it was, and the ghosts were attending the party, and most of them didn't realize they were dead. There's like this one door that they would open, and you open the door, and it's just like a decrepit old bathroom in an abandoned house. You close the door and you open it again, and it's a hot tub orgy. Hey, what do you know? So I'm like, who thinks of these things? So it's very quirky, a little idiotic, but again, it's nice to have things.
That's right up our alley.
Exactly.
Yes.
So it's nice to have things that make us smile. Good lunchtime, 20-minute episodes for especially this time of the pandemic, which is still ongoing because everything is awesome.
Yes.
So that is my pick of the week. We've got a couple of projects. Will, what's your project this week?
Well, I can't say it's 100% my project. A friend of mine in Venice, Italy, I never know how to say his name. I think it's Dragon, except it's with a 0 instead of an O, and very specifically a lowercase d. And he recruited me for a looper, so I dropped 3 loops on his latest project, and some of the bigger names in the looper genre, I guess, on Table Beats. So it's on Table Beats, not on Tableist.net. I don't know
will it be
why.
ever?
He's only put it on Table Beats so far.
Okay.
So
what's the difference between the two?
well, they're 2 different apps and 2 different
Okay.
websites. Table
Okay.
Beats is kind of the more popular, but the nice thing about Tableist.net is they actually have a web-based looper, so you can listen to them on the website as well. Whereas
Gotcha.
Table Beats is only in the app. And I really love what Tableist.net does, but I think the app is a little bit more seamless and works a little bit better. Table Beats is a little bit better than Tableist.net, but Tableist.net has the online looper, which is great. So me as someone who creates loops, I usually put them on both platforms just to capture everyone, because some people use their computers and don't use a phone or a tablet to use loopers. So yeah, I usually put them on both. This one currently is only on Table Beats, but might be on Tableist.net. I'll ask him.
Gotcha. And so is Dragon or Dragon, has he been featured in any of your collections when you've rounded out a bunch of beat makers?
Yes, he has been on most of them, I believe, if not all of them. Maybe the last one he wasn't on, Everyday Samurai. I don't think he was on that one because there's only about 3 or 4 people on that one. But he was definitely on the Scratch Genesis loopers.
And in this case, scratching each other's backs. Nicely done.
There we go.
Asia has another video for us this week. And I just have, before we get to it, I just want to mention to you, killed it with the views on your Amazon Prime Day 2022 deals. Lots and lots of views there. So
what were the views? I didn't see.
Thousands.
Well, I only had it up for a week. Typically, I try to do it 2 weeks prior, but just with the content I had going out, I just did it up a week prior. I think it got close to 8,000, which is good for me.
Wow, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
So what do you got for us this week?
This past one is all about Google Slides. So it's basically like a tutorial. I had people keep asking me on how to use Google Slides. So I was like, I'll just make a YouTube video on it. Perfect. So it is literally the, nuts and bolts of how to use it. It's like your beginner's guide. So we go over the layout of Google Slides. People can get familiar with that. Where to find certain things, how to create slides and add slides and rearrange slides, and then how to add like media and animations and things like that to slides.
So for
how
those
to share them.
For those who may only be familiar with, say, Google Docs or Google Sheets, what is Google Slides?
Google Slides is like Google's answer to, any presentation platform.
Like PowerPoint or Pages.
Exactly.
Keynote is the other one.
Exactly. Keynote, PowerPoint, any of the big major things. Obviously, it's super easy to share slides because if you're
and collaborate too,
and collaborate on slides, exactly. Nice. And little nugget, and I include this in the video. You can actually download it as a PowerPoint file. So if people needed to, maybe they don't, they're a little intimidated by PowerPoint, or someone just requested that file format and they're thinking they have to like make it in PowerPoint, you could theoretically make something in Google Slides
Very
and
cool.
export it out in PowerPoint.
Yeah, especially if you needed to give that presentation offline, if there wasn't reliable connectivity or something, which is
Exactly.
always a concern for some people with online, like web apps like that. So having an actual downloadable file is a great angle. So where can people find out, go and watch your video and find out more about your work, Tasia?
youtube.com/Tasia Custodi.
Love it. And I think we did it, folks. I mean, we lost Gray 3/4 of the way through, but hopefully we'll get him back. Hopefully he'll get his power back. Maybe next week we should talk about UPSs, uninterruptible power supplies. Got it here. Get to put on your modem. Get to put on your Wi-Fi router, etc., etc.
Yeah.
Belt and suspenders. We have so many UPSs in this house. This isn't even funny because I don't want to I don't want to miss a thing. Even on our PVRs and hard drives, you don't want a hard drive head to crash on the platter and you could have a bad time. I already lost one years ago that way. So from then on, it was UPSs everywhere. And it's great when the power goes out and then they all beep in unison. It's like a chorus of beep, beep, beep. Sounds like you got a bunch of trucks backing up in your house. Over.
The sweet
and
sound.
Over and over again. Exactly. All right. Thank you so much, Tasia. Great to have you back.
Thanks,
William,
guys.
As always, you can find out more about us, momentous.tv, facebook.com/momentous.tv, twitter.com/momentous.tv, instagram.com/momentous.tv, on YouTube, search for my name and find the Momentous playlists there. We hope your week is truly momentous.
Momentous.